Welcome to a live Sunday edition. Let's call this one Monday Night Football Eve of Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things, and we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about as well. So get your comments and questions ready. And a little tip when it comes to that. If you have the opportunity to watch the show either through the YouTube channel or Twitter, I prefer Twitter because any comments that you send through Twitter, I can add to the screen so we can actually see your questions or your comments, where if you send them through the YouTube channel, I cannot. We're going to get you up to speed on who's in, who's out for the Seahawks and the Lions tomorrow, and talk about the concept of, did they make the right decisions about how conservative they are in some of these cases, holding these guys out? I have some sound from Mike McDonald, his press conference just the other day, and also who has the advantage because the Lions have some significant injuries of their own. We'll also take a look around the NFC and the NFL from the early slate of games, and some happening right now that are impacting the Seattle Seahawks. And I also have a very, very special guest. You've seen him on the show before, but I like to tease. He'll be joining me as well and give us his thoughts on the game itself and on the injury issue. Very, very fascinating matchup on Monday that I think it got a little bit more fascinating because of the injury issues. This is Seahawks Forever. Let's go.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this live stream today. All right, let's get right to it. The story of the moment is, let's do this. Programming change already. Let's take a look around the early slate of games because I want to. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks now here in Seattle, and it's been a discussion around the league, around the country. Certainly, it's a point of discussion when it comes to our rival fans. The Seahawks are 3-0, one of only 5 undefeated teams entering play today. Are they a legit 3-0? If you're listening on the audio feed, I just made air quotes because, it's one of the things that gets debated the most often throughout the season. And it can be a really compelling debate if it's done from an objective standpoint. If it's just a 49er fan or a Ram fan that just don't want to believe the Seahawks are good because it obviously impacts their rooting interests, that's different. And one of the things that's gotten tossed around the last couple of weeks is, looking at comparative scores, right? We saw this with, the Seahawks beat the Broncos. And that was written off as Bo Nix's first game at Lumen Field, tough environment, tough place to play, pretty soft landing for the Seahawks to start off. Well, since then, the Broncos have proven to have one of the best defenses in the league. And today, they beat the New York Jets in New York. Hold Aaron Rodgers and the Jets to 3 field goals and beat them 10-9, despite the fact that Bo Nix early in the game had 7 completions in the game for -7 yards. Okay, so then week 2, they win the game in New England in overtime. And many people were saying coming out of that game that, hey, that's not a bad win. You travel all the way back to the East Coast, Mike McDonald's first time coaching in that situation. Patriots look like they have a pretty solid defense, an ascending player in Keon White, really good secondary. And they can run the football, and they did. So maybe that's a win that we'll look back in a few weeks and look a little bit more favorably upon. Like, that was a pretty quality win. Well, then the Patriots go out week 3 and get decimated by the Jets. And then the Jets turn around and lose to the Broncos. See where I'm going with that? And then, of course, last week against the Dolphins, I mean, everybody pretty universally recognizes that the quarterback situation there just made it hard for the Dolphins to be competitive. But the Seahawks continue to get some help from around the NFC, an NFC that looks to be full of parity, I think more so than some people thought coming into the season. Just today, the Eagles lose again. They dropped to 2-2, considered by most to be a contender in the NFC. Lose to the Buccaneers, who are now 3-1, 33-16, the final score there. The Vikings win again, 31-29 over the Packers in a game that almost got away from them. A 28-0 halftime lead. The Packers come storming back. Really looked early in that one like Jordan Love maybe shouldn't be playing. Passes were really inaccurate. Looked like he couldn't really put weight on that knee. They almost came back and pulled it off, but the Vikings move to 4-0 now. They, as we sit here today, would be the number 1 seed in the NFC with Sam Darnold playing quarterback. Who would have thought that was going to happen? The Chicago Bears do the Seahawks a favor today. 24-18 at home. Thank you, Shane Waldron, for putting together a 24-point effort on offense for the Bears. The Rams now drop to 1-3. The Saints, the hottest team in the league after 2 weeks, right? What's going on with Derek Carr? Is he an MVP candidate? Is this Saints team for real? They now lose their second straight. They drop to 2-2. The Falcons win on a last-second 58-yard field goal to improve to 2-2. So you're seeing some of the parity in the NFC really come to the forefront, which I think shines an even brighter spotlight on this game tomorrow, with the Seahawks obviously being 3-0, the Lions 2-1, now with a chance in that NFC North to, extend their lead over the Packers and try to keep pace with the Vikings. Seahawks getting no favors at the moment from those aforementioned Patriots. They are playing San Francisco in San Francisco today. And even though the 49ers don't look like their normal selves, they're racked with injuries. Trent Williams being the latest one that's banged up. They lead 20-3 at the half. And you have to wonder there, like, how long are they going to wait until they turn things over to Drake May? Jacoby Brissett just looks ineffective through a near pick 6 today. Just doesn't look very good. And then the other one that's of interest, because the Arizona Cardinals came into the season kind of everybody's darling in the NFC. They trail in early third quarter 24-7 to the Washington Commanders, who, if they hold on and win this game, improve to 3-1 under Dan Quinn, a guy that most of you didn't want any part of as a coaching candidate here, with a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, with an offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury that we spent a lot of time criticizing. I was going to say making fun of, but that's a little sophomoric. Criticizing during his time as head coach with the Arizona Cardinals. So a lot of interesting things going on around the NFC. Now let's take a look at those injuries. We're going to dive into this a little bit more in just a few minutes with our special guest today. Officially ruled out of this game for the Seahawks, Boye Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu, who, the hope all along was he was going to play in this game. That's why they didn't put him on injury reserve. But he is not ready to go. Byron Murphy with a hamstring injury, first-round draft pick out of Texas. Leonard Williams with a rib injury, and then Jerome Baker listed as questionable in this one. And then for the Lions, earlier they had put a couple guys on injury reserve and ruled them out for the rest of the season. Marcus Davenport, their starting defensive end, opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Derek Barnes, their best inside linebacker, alongside Alex Anzalone. And then Frank Ragnow, their outstanding center, top 5 center in this league, had hoped to give it a go with that partially torn pec. They ruled him out for this game. That's going to have an impact on the game. Also, questionable rookie cornerback Ennis Rakestraw, who was starting alongside or opposite Terrion Arnold to begin the season, really struggled. He's been banged up. He may play in this game. And then just added to the injury report yesterday after practicing in full on Friday, Brian Branch, who DK Metcalf calls their best defensive back. He is out, or not ruled out of this game, but he is doubtful, which is only the next level up in injury designation from out. He will be presumably a game time decision. And speaking of injuries, you do not want to injure your MVPs, which is why you need Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra All-in-One Grooming Kit. Right now, they're offering a special deal you can't refuse. This kit includes their Pro Bowl lineup. You've heard about it. 10 million men have purchased it. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer. Also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 Ear and Nose Hair Trimmer, an aftercare package, and a couple of free gifts, including their Midnight Bravo boxers and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. Premium gear to ensure you're always ready for action, whether at home or on the road. And right now, you get 20% off plus free shipping on this entire package with the promo code Seahawks at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Seahawks at manscaped.com. Head on over there, stay on top of your grooming game, be ready for anything the season throws your way. And if you're looking to get in on the best that online betting has to offer, check out the Monday Night Football prop bets this week over at BetUS. Here's just a smidge, just a sampling of what you can find on the website right now. The over on Geno Smith passing yards, 24 or 243 and a half. You have to like the over. Seeing Geno's performance there the last 2 years in Detroit, over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. DK Metcalf over 62 and a half yards. You like that one, especially against that struggling secondary with Detroit. And then Tyler Lockett, who had the walk-off touchdown in overtime last year to wrap that game up, over 43 and a half. And right now, if you start an account today, BetUS will give you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000. Head on over to BetUS and use the promo code YouTube150. All right, we've got a lot to talk about, and I promised you a special guest. You know him, you love him, you've seen him on the show before. I hope you're watching his podcast as well, co-host of the outstanding Seahawks Playbook podcast. Bill Alvstad is going to join me, and one thing you may or may not know about Bill, he's a big metal fan, so let's bring him in with, appropriately enough, given the one of the ad reads I just did, let's play this cut right here to bring him in, and I'll tell you why we're playing this cut when we bring him in. That one's called Balls of Fire. That's why.
Right on. Thanks, Dan.
Well, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm doing really good, actually. It's Sunday, nothing to do, twiddling my thumbs, barbecuing some stuff on the Traeger.
Did I see that it's 112 down there today?
It's hot, man. Yesterday,
it's almost October, dude.
Like 2 months ago, I purchased like a resort pass. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you can kind of, and local here, you kind of take advantage of those deals. You get a resort pass, you spend the day at the pool at the Hyatt Regency or whatever, and you don't have to stay there. You just go to the pool. And so a couple months ago, I'm like, yeah, the end of September would be really nice. Like, maybe 90, 92, maybe in the upper 80s, take advantage of that. Yesterday was 113, 114. It was brutal. Still went, had a good time. But today is just about gardening, like taking care of stuff, getting stuff prepped early, got out there early before the heat got overwhelming, and took care of the chores, came back in, checked a couple scores out on the red zone, and decided to hop on the show today to talk some Seahawks football.
Yeah, right. It's nice. I like these. We get a couple of these every year. If you're on Monday Night Football or when you play the Thursday game, obviously the bye week, it's kind of refreshing to have these non-Seahawks Sundays. You get to watch wall-to-wall red zone if you want to, and kind of focus on some other things. And I'm into it. I like it. Some people are freaking out today because they don't have their Seahawks, but I take it as it comes.
Yeah, no. And later, I'm celebrating my girl's 30th birthday. She's coming over and doing some ribs on the barbecue now, and so that's going to be great. My son's coming over. He's at ASU now. Learning how to be an engineer. He's in the engineering department over there, and he's actually working on satellites and space stuff, which is amazing to me.
Very, very cool.
Yeah,
must be as smart as his dad.
Well, doesn't fall far.
We have a fun, really fun Sunday night game tonight too that I'm going to be really interested to watch. The undefeated Bills traveling to Baltimore. So it'll be, the Seahawks have the Bills on their schedule in a few weeks. Talk about a test. I mean, the Bills right now, especially when you look at some of the other results around the league, right there in the conversation for best team in the league so far. And going up against the scheme that Mike McDonald built there, be interesting to kind of get a feel for how they attack that. I'm sure Mr. McDonald and his staff and themselves will be watching that game quite closely tonight, I would imagine. A little free scouting.
Fun game. Yeah, so, I kind of came on to talk about injuries and this game a little bit coming up on Monday night. Previewed the game a little bit with Keith the other day, and I felt pretty good going into that show. Now that was 2 days ago in the morning, and since then, come to find out, everyone that is starting on the defensive line is not going to play in this game, and it's according to Mike McDonald, it's an opportunity for all the other guys to kind of show out and play a little bit more than they've been accustomed to. So I'm going to be as positive as I can and agree with some of that, but also, man, having Boye Mafe out of there, we're not getting Uchenna Nwasu back. Leonard Williams, of course, has been playing very well this year, and it's going to be an interesting game in that respect, And on the other side, I guess they're missing their big guy over on that side as well on that offensive center. Frank Ragnell's out. So, and I think that's a huge impact. So for me, that kind of, it doesn't necessarily wash this thing completely, but it makes it easier. Like, I'm not so nervous about having everybody gone. I'm really curious as to how you feel like this is going to impact, like, the game is like this is the interesting part for me, is like, this is the first time really we get to see Coach Mike McDonald coach, like, how far the depth goes on this team, where the scheme, where the cutoffs are. Like, you can miss a certain amount of guys and you can kind of make up for it, but this is a lot of guys. And so it'll be very interesting to me how he mentally prepares this team to really take on one of the best offenses in the NFL, slow these guys down a little bit. I'm interested how much they run 12 personnel to get a couple tight ends in there to at least chip on the right side and help Stone Forsythe out a little bit against their best pass rusher, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And
certainly the hottest pass rusher in the NFL is 6.5 sacks so far. Yeah, he's been on 4.5 in one game. He's been on fire. It's let me play, because you touched on this. Let me play that sound that you're referring to from Coach McDonald, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Well, I wouldn't say it's any different than when people are we've got 4 guys that are down. That's 4 more guys are going to be up. Looking forward to seeing those guys play. When you talk about having depth in your football team, you want the feeling to be like, okay, I can't wait to see, whoever's going to get that opportunity now. So that's our view, is that guys are going to have more opportunities than they've usually had, and looking forward to seeing what they do.
There's a lot to unpack here. When he was asked the question, there's a pause. If you watch the video, there's a pause, and he kind of makes this weird facial expression, like almost like he's surprised by the question, right?
I think he's probably surprised by his own answer,
and that it clashes with his internal thoughts and his belief system about what's going on. And that's, so I've gone through the kind of the roller coaster this week, like you have. I started the week thinking this is going to be a tough one, maybe 3-1. I'll take that. Would have taken it at the beginning of the year. And then, a winnable game against the Giants. And then we go into Thursday Night Football. Let's go. Right. As the week went along, I felt better and better about our prospects of going in there and winning, especially after talking to a couple of guys from the Lions side of things this week and some of the things that they're struggling with, especially on that defense. I thought there were some areas we could attack. But I was thinking the whole week that by the time the final injury report came out, I thought Leonard Williams was going to play. You can manage ribs. You can give him a shot. You can wear a flak jacket. I thought he was going to go. I didn't think we'd see Murphy. You got to be careful with hamstrings. They got to protect him at all costs and make sure he's 100% when he's ready to go. And I certainly thought we were going to see Chenna, because leading up to this, they were pretty optimistic and positive that keeping him off IR was the right move. So seeing all those, and then Boye they said it was a re-aggravation of when he got his knee banged into a couple of weeks ago. And that, he played the whole game against the Dolphins and seemed fine. He was really good. He had a sack in the game. So to see all those guys out, I kind of had to, refresh my screen and kind of blink a couple times, make sure I was reading it right. Then you obviously are taken aback. But listening to McDonald, I think there's two things at play here. He mentions it. There's another part of the press conference where he talks about, like, look, there's 3 games stacked on top of each other, basically in about an 11 or 12 day period. You have a whole long season to prepare for. And he even specifically said at one point, if this was the Super Bowl, we're having a different conversation. Like that I think at least 3 of these guys could play. I don't think this is just about them being ultra conservative because there's 14 games left to go. I think they feel that good about not only their depth, but about the plan that they would have in place with that depth, that they can still go out and compete and win this game.
It's funny, when you listen to that and he said, 4 guys out, 4 guys up. How many times have you heard a coach say that? Not very often, it's usually like, hey, 1 guy's down, next man up, right? Next man up. 4 guys down.
Like a basketball game. You just, you're just putting in the B team.
I was like, well, that's something. That's a statement, but while devastating in this small window frame of this picture, when you widen it out, I agree with you. I think that this is an opportunity. It is, getting into the coach speak a little bit. This is an opportunity for those guys that haven't been out there taking all those reps. Travis Gibson, Derek Hall, Draymond Jones are going to get more reps. Jonathan Hankins is going to be out there again for quite a while. Mike Morris and Miles Adams are going to get some playing time now. Miles Adams in particular, we haven't seen too much. There's a chance that maybe Baker won't play in this game. He's questionable. I'm betting my money he will, but you're still going to probably get some reps out of Drake Thomas and so forth, Tyrese Knight. So there is an opportunity here to get some guys some real playing time and allow them to kind of come forward and see what they've got. Again, I point to the depth and to the scheme. These are questions that, while the coaching staff might be comfortable with those answers internally, as fans and us covering the team, we don't have those answers yet. We don't know those definitions, especially against a team like the Lions. Yeah, the first 3 games, you can't, you don't know who your opponents are when the schedule's made up and you go play the games that are in front of you. I think Seattle did a great job playing not down to their opponent's level, but really kind of putting those teams away. And none of those games were really in question, if you're really honest about it. Now, this game, I originally, you do your prediction shows and so forth in the at the beginning of the season, and I definitely had this down as a loss. But like you, as this week kind of came, that we saw the first 3 games, we're 3-0. We've got some momentum going. Everything looks good. We still haven't played a complete game yet. You got to feel good about that. Yeah, we've had some struggles on the offensive line, but everything else is kind of coming together. Defense looks amazing, and so. As I literally just a couple of days ago predicted that the Seattle Seahawks would come away with a victory in this game. And it was, for me, I thought it was going to be a 2-score victory.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And the reason that I came to that conclusion is that I thought that our defense, now this is before the injuries, I thought that our defense was going to be able to do enough and possibly generate a turnover in this game to make the Lions struggle, especially in with any passes of depth. So I thought Seattle's going to force them to, they're going to try to stop the run first and foremost. Second, they're going to try to limit Jared Goff to the short passing game and so forth and make them kind of work their way down the field, similar to where, Pete Carroll used to do. I thought that would be the strategy. We'll have them make some mistakes. We'll get some turnovers. We'll hopefully limit the conversions on third downs, and we'll get the ball back to our offense. And our offense will conversely then be better against their defense than their offense against our defense, and we'd win. And since this injury report, I'm not sure if the equation changes much, to be completely honest with you. I'm feeling that confidence, that quiet confidence that this Mike Macdonald guy that we're just getting to start to know is special. Like there's something special going on here. And I'm not so worried about missing 4 guys. I don't know why. Maybe I should be. Maybe I'm a total homer, and but I'm not feeling that. And I think that this team's confident, and they go in and they try to take care of business as best as they can. Now, this could be a loss. We might not see the team at 100% strength, and we're going to see that maybe for the first time and see some vulnerabilities that we haven't seen yet. And maybe, next week is the reaction week. How do they react to that? Right. But I'm expecting still a very competitive game, and for the Seahawks to come out on top.
It's almost it's a great place to be. Thank goodness they're 3-0 because it kind of allows most fans, some people are just wired so tight they can't accept the possibility or the prospect of losing. But to know that you could go into Detroit and lose this game, even convincingly, and there's no shame in that, first of all, and that it really doesn't change any of the goals that you would have for the rest of the season, especially when you look at what's happening around the NFC West. I mean, it wouldn't really put them at an advantage. Now, you can make the argument that down the road later in the season, it's a tiebreaker if you end up being even with the Lions. But then if that's where you're at, then you've had a pretty good season, right? There's a couple of things here to unpack, after what you said. It's easy to panic when you see your good players injured and not able to play. But it was just a few weeks ago when we were all previewing this season, when one of the primary storylines that we all talked about, no matter which Seahawks content creator you prefer to watch, they all talked about this issue. And we all talked about it on each other's shows. The depth up front on this roster was light years away from where it was just a year and a half ago, when they completely, heading into what would end up being Pete Carroll's final season as head coach, completely just flushed that position group and rebuilt it from scratch. And how excited we all were about the depth. There aren't many teams in the league, I would argue, that can lose 4 starters along the front. And we're including the edge players, the outside linebackers, as defensive linemen in this argument, and still be able to have some level of confidence going in against a good team than we do. Because Jonathan Hankins was a part-time player, more of a situational player, had to play full-time last week, was maybe our best player on defense. Draymond Jones kind of transitioned to an edge player this year, but when he was signed and given that big contract, biggest free agent contract ever handed out by John Schneider on the defensive side of the ball, he was an interior player. So now he can go back to doing that. And they drafted Mike Morris. One of the appeals was he has unique length, unique size. He can play inside or outside. And then you have Miles Adams, who had his best preseason as a Seahawk and really hasn't had a chance to play at all. Those guys are going to get opportunities now. And now Derek Hall is a starter, and we've seen the step forward he's taken this year. Now, if another guy goes down along the way in the game, God forbid, we might be having a different conversation. And then you have guys like Trevis Gibson, who was acquired right at the beginning of the season, who has shown to be a very effective NFL player. He has length, and he's going to get more reps. It's an enviable situation to be in. I think it also, in some ways, you can make the argument that it's a bit of an advantage strategically for the Seahawks, because how are the Lions going to scout this group? They don't know how Mike Macdonald is going to deploy them, how he's going to use them. Now, we might look back 3 days from now, 2 days from now, and the Lions, like the Patriots did, maybe they just pound the ball with Gibbs and Montgomery and end up controlling the clock, and they win the game. and we look back and we go,
that would
we should
certainly be my strategy if I was Dan Campbell.
We should have seen it. Right. But anything short of that, and I think if the Lions throw the ball at the rate they normally do, or if we can slow down the run enough to force them to throw the ball at the rate they normally do, that's where I like this matchup, because this group, even without those players we mentioned, the stuff that McDonald likes to do, and we've heard this from players, hasn't even opened up the full defensive playbook yet, right? There's things that the Lions haven't seen us do on tape yet that I'm sure they'll do in this game. And sim pressures and not knowing where guys are coming from, I think that becomes even a little bit more mysterious when it comes to, Ben Johnson trying to figure out how to attack this defense.
Yeah. And everything that you said is exactly right. And kind of what the formation of my thought process as I kind of came into this show was like, yeah, we're down Mafe, Nuasu. We really haven't even had Nuasu yet. So really we're missing 3 guys.
That's a great point.
Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe. Now those are big.
Yeah.
But the emergence
you could even, to take your point one step further, the Seahawks played their best defense on Sunday, granted, understanding the quarterback situation in Miami, but they still have all those weapons and a very, very good running game, even though they were playing from behind. And they didn't have Leonard Williams or Byron Murphy in that second half, and they still were able to turn up the gas, get to the quarterback, wreak havoc.
There's some special players on this defense, I think, emerging. I think Derek Hall looks like he's going to be a player. Now, and so far, he's looked like one of the best players on this defense. Drew Mountain-Jones is playing better than he was last year. I think he's been put in a position where he's feeling more comfortable, better position to be successful for him. You mentioned Mike Morris coming along. Jonathan Hankins is playing an oversized role right now. Jaron Reed is going to have to play more in this game and play better. I think Jaron Reed probably is the least impressive player for me, given where the expectation level is for him. I think he could come along a little bit more. So, and then you add the back end in, and we haven't really talked about that at all, but this back end on this defense is something. And when you get Witherspoon going, and you've got Brown, and you've got, all the other guys that are back there and playing very well, one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. I think you don't necessarily have to get the sacks in this game to have an impact, and you just have to get some pressure. And I think these guys, based on this scheme, I think they've shown enough to where I think we're going to be able to be okay getting that pressure. And it's just a matter of staying disciplined, staying in your lanes. They do a lot of play action off that 12 personnel set. I think second in the NFL in play action, and first in the NFL, I believe, in play action success as far as yardage and completion percentage for Jared Goff. And so you're just going to have to be disciplined as a defense. And I think they will. I think this is a Mike McDonald defense compared to, years past. I think this defense is pretty darn disciplined so far, as we've seen. So I think defensively, we're going to be okay. Now, this could end up being a shootout. Maybe that favors Seattle. Because if we need to keep scoring because they're scoring and our defense is kind of falling off a little bit, I think we have the opportunity to do that in this game. We haven't really even talked about that yet, but I think the offense can really kind of put pressure on the Lions. When you take a look at their defensive front, really, you're going to be paying attention to Aiden Hutchinson, and that's it. Yeah. They've got a couple other players, but really he's the guy. And if you can chip him a little bit, slow him down even for a half a second. Half a second is a lot of time for Geno Smith. Geno's getting the ball out really well this year. And I like the idea that Ken Walker's coming back in this game. I think that's huge. Nobody's really even talking about that, but I think it's a huge step for this offense to be able to get him back and have opportunities to create in space that Charbonnet just can't do. Charbonnet's great in small yardage situations, and when he gets a lane, he is good, but he needs a little head start to do that, and he's not as good at bouncing and creating those those home run type plays. So I think that's going to be a factor in this game. Hopefully, I think it will be.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you do have any deficiencies on defense, obviously it's something that we've been pounding the table for the previous 2 seasons, hoping to try and mitigate some of the shortcomings of the defense in Seattle the last couple of years is you control the clock and you run the football. And that's something that the Seahawks should be better equipped to do this week than they've been able to up until this point. Because even when they had Ken Walker week 1, and he was able to be effective, almost ran for 100 yards, had a touchdown against what has proven to be since then one of the better defenses overall in the NFL. The Broncos completely shut down the Jets today in New York. That they didn't have Pharaoh Brown. And you can see his impact as a run blocker already last week. AJ Barner, we're seeing kind of as advertised, even as young as he is as a rookie, his ability to block in the run game. When you look at PFF this week, interestingly enough, some of the run blocking grades are better than you might think for certain guys. Charles Cross, who coming out of college was billed as an outstanding pass protector who needs work in the run game. He is the number 1 graded run blocking tackle in the NFL right now, according to PFF. Laken Tomlinson, for as much of a beating as he has taken, along with Anthony Bradford at right guard, the number 11 offensive guard when it comes to run blocking in the NFL. Connor Williams has kind of risen up the ranks the last couple of weeks, getting his feet underneath him. The number 13 center run blocking. And then AJ Barner, as a rookie, the 14th best tight end in run blocking. You mentioned it. Maybe we see more 12 personnel. Maybe we see some help there. But also this, when the Seahawks played the Lions last year, came away with that overtime win, Abe Lucas was out. Stone Forsythe played that game and played very, very well against Aiden Hutchinson. Stone Forsythe also played very well last week against the Dolphins. Basically eliminated Jalen Phillips. We just didn't hear his name. And I think he was the highest rated offensive lineman for the Seahawks in that game last week. So, had some rough moments against the Patriots, but really, really seemed to step forward last week. So, obviously Geno's played well there. That passing game gives us a lot of optimism that they can be prolific. But if Ken Walker, Pharaoh Brown, another week of those guys playing together, and we'll see what happens at right guard. Mike McDonald did say Christian Haynes would play tomorrow. Remains to see how much. That is probably their best path to winning this football game. Run the football.
Yeah, I agree. Although I think the Lions are ranked like 5th or 6th in the NFL in defending the run. But they also put up points. Teams fall behind.
They hope we try to run the football.
Yeah, well,
because they've really struggled against the pass.
Teams fall behind against them, and they've got to turn to the passing game, and that helps a little bit. But and DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil there in the middle, along with Jack Campbell at middle linebacker, they defend the run pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Just run straight at them. Would be my advice. Because I think that, you take a look at Anthony Bradford and Connor Williams and not so much Tomlinson, but those two over on the right side and add Stone Forsythe in there, big guy. I think those guys can move some people, and it'd be very interesting to see how committed they are to taking some time off the clock in this game to limit the opportunities that the Lions have. You add 1, maybe 2 turnovers into this equation from the Lions into the Seahawks' hands. That could be the difference in this game. And we haven't seen those turnovers yet, I think, as a defense, team turnovers. And I'd love to see a little bit more action there. And then I don't think that, before I came on, you were reading an ad for Bet. What was it? Bet GM?
Bet US. Yep.
Bet US. Sorry. And you said the over on Geno yardage wise was like 246 or something like that.
Right.
And that would be an easy over. And you looked at the overs for receiving yards, and Metcalf had 60 or whatever. And I think this is going to be a passing game. I think that Seattle's going to be able to move the ball in the air, and we've got a lot of weapons. And I fully expect this to be probably a 400, close to 400 total yards in offense for Seattle. I think it's a repeat from what we've seen the last 2 or 3 years.
It sure feels
in
like
Detroit
it.
and
Yeah.
Seattle, those matchups, they've just been kind of on fire and surprising. I think our defense is a little better now, and that's definitely going to be the difference.
You mentioned turnovers of Seahawks. Surprisingly, I think, -1 in turnover differential. But the last, 2 years in Detroit, 2 years ago, rookie year, Reek Woolen with pick six. Last year, Trey Brown with pick six, really kind of turned that game around in the third quarter.
I forgot about that one last year.
Yeah, he had such a good game in that game. Sometimes the best path to winning and to beating another team is the most obvious path. And one of the things that I was excited about the prospect of Ryan Grubb, even before the season started, is based on what I had seen in the offenses he ran at UW, and certainly, against my Cougs, I saw it front and center. Especially, I'm thinking of the Apple Cup 2 years ago, Penix's second to last year in Pullman, where when he senses a weakness, he will continue to pound away at it until you prove you can stop it. And even then, he might still keep going back to it. We've seen some of that. He kind of spends, I've made the analogy that he spends from the opening whistle till the end of the game, he pokes and he pokes and he pokes and he pokes and he tries to find a soft spot. And once he finds it, he keeps going back to it. We saw it in the second half, running the football against Denver. We saw it throwing the football against New England when they couldn't run the football at all. It's that secondary against the lines. You look at PFF grades, and my goodness, the rookie Terrion Arnold, who has tons of talent out of Alabama, first-round draft pick, he'll be fine in the long run. But he's, I think, the second to last graded player in coverage in the NFL. Carlton Davis, the veteran who they signed in free agency, not much better. And now Brian Branch may not play in this game.
Who
as
back
well.
there is going to guard DK Metcalf?
It's I think, as much as we can sit here and talk about running the football, because that's a football thing to do, and it's I get it, and it does make a lot of sense. But I think Ryan Grubb right now, as he gets ready, he's getting his play sheet ready for tomorrow. He wants to be aggressive. And it's something we've seen that excites me in the first 3 weeks is there is a consistent aggressive mentality. No matter how the running game's going, no matter how time of possession's going, no matter what the game situation is, there are so many plays on tape so far this year where, the end result is a 10-yard completion or a 15-yard completion. But before that happens, you see Geno wanting the home run, wanting to take the shot. And indeed, 2 of his 3 interceptions have been caused by pressure, but also because he was looking for the home run. And in both cases, would have had it if he had had a split more second.
I tell you what,
I think they're going to continue to be aggressive there.
One of the best plays potentially in this game could be a pass pro block from Ken Walker or Zach Charbonnet in a key moment in this game, where you pick up a guy coming up the middle and Geno gives that just a split second time to have Geno have the time to get the ball out and drive the ball down the field. So, I don't see Geno and this offense being slowed down by this defense. Now, this defense is a good defense, and they've worked on this defense for like 2 years in a row. Yeah. It was very
put
porous
a lot of resources
a couple years ago. Last year improved, and this year they worked on that secondary where they thought they had it solved. Now, injuries happen. They've got a couple of rookies. They're just not quite performing the way that they thought they would early on. But it doesn't mean that defense can't get them to a championship game. I think it can. But they're facing one of the better offenses, emerging offenses, and I think that Geno, being the savvy vet that he is going to be able to kind of dictate terms, if you will. As long as Hayden Hutchinson doesn't get out of control in this game, I think we're good.
Yeah, and I think Grubb will have a good plan on how to stay away from him. I've been a proponent of Geno Smith ever since, early in his first year as a starter, when it became clear that this was a different player than we'd seen early in his career. And with each passing week now, I just get more and more confident. He's playing at such a high level right now. He's also playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Pass,
yeah. He also wants something to prove. Seahawks are 31st in pass rush or pass block win rate. And yet he's 6th in the league, I think, in getting rid of the football. He understands the mission, right? He understands the assignment, as the cliche goes these days. And he's been so accurate, and he trusts his weapons so much. I wonder if this game isn't a real opportunity. JSN had a real quiet game last week, and DK's been the guy that gets the most consistent target share week in, week out, which we all expected coming into the season. And we've seen that play out, which is encouraging, because we're used to offensive coordinators that will go games at a time without paying attention to a particular, pass catcher. And often that would be DK. I think maybe he's the guy, right? Where the Detroit's going to roll their coverages and spend so much time taking care of DK, or at least paying attention to him. A couple other stats here that I find really, really interesting. And I tried finding it this morning. I couldn't. I thought I bookmarked it, but there's a stat out there. There's a couple. First of all, in his career, Jared Goff is the splits for him on when he's pressured inside the pocket and when he's not are dramatic. And also the splits on when the Lions have had Frank Ragnow at center and haven't, and the amount of interior pressure that they've allowed, it's a dramatic split as well. I think, they have two of the best tackles in the NFL. You have Penei Sewell, left tackle, and Taylor Decker at right tackle. I think if they're going to get to Goff, it's going to have to be through some combination of deception and sim pressures and some sort of penetration up the middle, make Goff move off his spot, because we've seen, certainly as Seahawks fans, we know all the way back to his days with the Rams, if you can make him move, he's just not very good.
I understand that Graham Glasgow is in line to replace Frank Ragnow as their center. Heard that from Jared Goff.
Moved him over from guard, and
then Michael Neese, undrafted guy, I believe, is set to go at left guard.
Actually, they've a show with a Lions reporter the other day, and now looking at Our Lads depth chart today, it confirms what he said, which is I'm going to butcher his name, but Awosika.
Awosika. Yeah.
Awosika. They've got him listed as the starter at left guard, which is interesting because Kevin Zeitler was playing left guard. So that it appears now that maybe Zeitler might move over to right guard, the old veteran.
Yeah.
And then Ragnow moves.
Seattle needs to take advantage of this. So, this Frank Ragnow thing is a big thing for them. He's the centerpiece. I mean, he's an all pro, not just a Pro Bowler. He's an all pro center, probably the second best center in the NFL. Some say he's the first best. Him moving out of there and them having to shuffle is an opportunity. Now, that's why I said early, it doesn't necessarily net neutral our losses on the defensive line coming into this game with injuries, with just him being missing on their offensive line, but it's pretty damn close. Given the idea that he kind of controls the entire thing, he makes all the line calls, all that kind of stuff. So Graham Glasgow moving in there. Now Graham's got plenty of playing time in the NFL, but he's not Frank Ragnow. So it'll be interesting. From where I sit, I think the pass rush stuff with Seattle and disguising and so forth is going to be a factor, even with our replacement level players. The thing that I would want to watch and key for the Lions offense is their rushing success. And early and often in this game, how successful are they, or are they not? Because right now they lead the league in rushing success percentage at 52.1. The Kansas City Chiefs are 51.9, and so on and so forth. And I think that they've had a lot of success. They've got some running backs that can really attack you, in Jamari Gibbs, David Montgomery. It's a big time 1-2 punch with speed and power. And I would be watching for that. I think that if I was Dan Campbell, I would test the ability of Seattle's defense to stop the run early. And then I would take my shots, because if you're not getting any pressure or pass rush on Jared Goff can carve you up. And you were just kind of alluding to that with that pressure rate. And I think that the non-pressure versus pressure success rate for Jared Goff is pronounced. Now you throw that at Geno Smith, it's a completely different story. Geno handles pressure very, very well.
Yeah.
In fact, he's one of the top pressure quarterbacks in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He's proven it time and again with that 31st ranked offensive line, right?
Yeah.
And look, here we are, and both of us are exuding, a certain level of optimism about this game. Lions are dangerous, man. And their weapons, we all kind of were hoping that maybe Sam Laporta wouldn't play in this game. He's going to. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the most effective receivers in the league. Jameson Williams has taken a step forward. Now he's finally healthy and past the suspensions.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now he's going to have to go up against Devon Witherspoon.
That's going to be such a fun
matchup.
And I want to. Here's the thing I think it's going to be fun to watch, because outside of those three guys we just mentioned, they're a little shallow when it comes to weapons. Like, they brought Tim Patrick in this year, but he was let go, from the Broncos for a reason. Two devastating injuries the last couple of years have ended his seasons and potentially sapped some of his explosiveness. I thought they were a lot more dangerous when Josh Reynolds was there. And so, it's those three guys. We haven't seen this yet, and maybe this isn't the week where it makes sense. But before the season started, we saw some interviews with Leslie Frazier talking about traveling and shadowing. And surprisingly enough, he talked in terms of they think that Reek Woolen is a guy that is going to evolve into a player that will shadow number one receivers, while Witherspoon continues to play kind of that hybrid role, some outside, some inside, and play some nickel and closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't know that this game makes sense for that, because, or maybe it does, because I think Witherspoon's skill set matches up a little bit better guarding St. Brown, especially in the middle of the field, whereas Reek with his long speed matches up better with Jameson Williams.
Amon St. Brown.
This is something I want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he literally runs almost 100% of his reps out of the slot. Jameson Williams is going to be the guy I think Reek Woolen's going to be on, I think, for the most part. Now, is he a true number one? Maybe not yet. But Amon St. Brown is kind of a Tyler Lockett on steroids kind of a player for me. Now, not trying to diminish Tyler Lockett a lot, but that's their go-to guy. Like, he's going to get, 10 to 12 opportunities to catch the ball in this game. And we'll see what happens with those reps. Now, we've seen people try to challenge Witherspoon. I don't know that that's necessarily a good idea. But Jameson Williams could get his opportunities here. He's not had a great season so far, but also this could be his kind of coming out party if they try to stretch the field a little bit. We'll see. And
Laporta, obviously, we'll have to see what the plan is from the beginning of the game, because, Hunter Henry had that first half against us where he just shredded us. I think it was 7 catches in the first half for almost 100 yards. And then there was an adjustment made. I think they put Julian Love on him in the second half. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe that's how they open up, right? Maybe it's Julian Love to start with, and he's the guy covering in that case, and maybe they go with that third safety, kind of play that big nickel.
Depending on how the run defense goes, you could see them running 3 safeties out there 75% of the plays in this game, which would I think help cover the middle a little bit better.
It's interesting. Last week, watching the game from the stadium, and I didn't have binoculars with me in this game. And so, I'm just watching it organically. It's how I like to do it for the most part. And then I'll come home and watch a replay or 2 or 3. And there was a point in the game where I thought, where's Rayshon Jenkins? Like, I'm not seeing him. They had Kobe Bryant taking a lot of snaps last week, playing deep safety alongside Kayvon Wallace. and obviously Julian Love. And then, come to find out, I just wasn't seeing him because he ended up leading the team in tackles with 10. He was playing so much closer to the line of scrimmage in that particular matchup. I love that about this team. It's something that for years and years and years, I used to look fondly, jealously upon the New England Patriots from afar, as they're winning championship after championship, because what was one of Bill Belichick's calling cards? It was week in, week out. You never knew what their defensive game plan was going to be, or even their scheme. They literally sometimes from one week to the next would run a 3-4 and then a 4-3 and then a 5-2 and then the 80.
Right. Cover 4, cover 8, cover whatever.
Yeah. And we're seeing that even through the first couple of weeks when you see those charts with the coverages that teams are playing. Most of them, it's a bell curve. They have one preferred coverage that they lean on. The Seahawks, as much as anyone in the league, have been very, very more evenly distributed. And they
have the personnel to do that.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It makes it kind of hard for us because it makes it harder to predict what they're going to do.
So I think
but as a fan, I think it makes it more fun.
The one player that you mentioned a couple different times, and each time you did it, I kind of cringed, was Sam Laporta. Now we've seen Sam before, and he definitely has an impact, but that guy's a big playmaker. Like, if there's one player in this game other than Amon St. Brown, he would be a guy that I would be concerned about. Now, containing Jamari Gibbs is a job, but Sam Laporta is going to be matched up against players like Rashawn Jenkins and Julian Love and Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant and potentially Tyrese Knight. And so you gotta watch that guy. I mean, that guy's gonna get his catches, but you just don't want to get anything, beyond average, like 10, 12 yards, anything beyond that with 5 or 6 catches, and he's going to have some plays. So,
and I mean, we'll see how much like Sam Laporta looks. I mean, they dodged a bullet. It wasn't the dreaded high ankle sprain. It was just a low ankle sprain. We've all had those playing, either football or rec league basketball or whatever, but he still might not be. Those can be tricky, and they're going to wrap the heck out of it. It can still limit your mobility and your quickness.
He's a competitor. It ain't going to slow him down.
Yeah. But I just, that quick twitch part of his game, which, I think was the deceiving part of his game as a rookie, because he looks like an old school throwback tight end. You don't expect him to run as dynamic a route tree as he runs and be able to run after the catch like he does. If even a little bit of that is compromised, then certainly that makes it a little easier to guard him. But it's not something you can count on. I mean, he's such a good player. Such a good player. And speaking of tight ends, I do hope, and this could be a really interesting factor in this game, that maybe last week we finally saw how the tight end is going to be used in this offense. I mean, Noah Fant had his best game of the season, 6 catches on 6 targets. AJ Barner had a couple of catches. Noah Brown or Farrell Brown had a catch, so 9 catches, I think, between them. Mm-hmm. That's something we haven't seen enough, and we've all been screaming for it for years, and so maybe there's some opportunities there in the middle of the field, especially if you get into, like you're talking about, 12 personnel. You've got Brown on the right side. Maybe he helps chip a little bit on Hutchinson, leaks out in the middle of the field. Could be an opportunity there as well.
The surprising thing too, was the lack of third down conversions. We still got the ball out to our tight ends with that frequency. I would have thought, if you would have asked and not seen that stat, I think we were 3 for 12 or something like that. I would have said, well, we had to have been 6 for 13 or whatever, 7 for 13. So I would say in this game, I would love to see that again, but I also want to see them convert on third downs more and sustain drives. If you're going to kick field goals, I want to kick field goals, inside the 30. I want to be able to really put the pressure on them. And if you can't, then we definitely need Dixon to come out and have a better game and flip field for us, and pin guys back. But I want to see those third down conversions. I want to see red zone success. And part of that is going to have that tight end group have opportunities and be successful. I don't know beyond, and guys like Jake Bobo, like I would have thought, okay, this might be a coming out game for like a Jake Bobo, because attention will be put on DK Metcalf. And they need another weapon other than Noah Fant that's going to be a red zone target. And I think Jake Bobo would have an opportunity there to be able to do that. But
yeah, it sure seems like they've kind of, that Laviska Shenault has kind of jumped him in the pecking order as far as the depth chart goes, because he can do some of those other things that
and those other things, you see those other things, you know, and
they haven't
so
really led to much yet.
Not yet. And so I'm not sure, you know, it's a new coaching staff. They're obviously, you know, he's on the team, but I do agree that he's kind of moved into the 5th or 6th spot, because Derek Young has also been showing up a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So I watch for a guy that can convert on the red zone stuff in this game. A guy like DK Metcalf, a guy like Noah Fant, not Brady Russell, AJ Barner potentially, and a guy like Jake Bobo, who's got some size that he can use against their shorter, less physical corners would potentially be a matchup advantage.
And I'll tell you what, in past years, especially the last couple, I would have said and did say and have said out loud that anytime, you know, Geno Smith going up against Jared Goff is a fascinating quarterback matchup, because their stories they're not identical, but they're a little bit similar, right? Goff was kind of given up on and cast off from the Rams, and everybody thought it was just a creative way for the Lions to be able to acquire a draft pick. And that they would ultimately at some point use it on a young quarterback. That wasn't what happened. And then we saw a resurgence out of Goff in a similar way to what we've seen from Geno Smith. And I would have even said that their games were similar. This year's different. I think one area that the Seahawks have an advantage tomorrow night, they have the better quarterback.
Agreed. I like what Jared Goff's done. Man, talk about a great story. Didn't like him with the Rams. I thought that he was limiting to the offense there with the Rams, but you know what? Dan Campbell has turned that guy into a winner, a leader of other men, and out of that has come a very efficient player who knows his limitations, but operates within an offense and does that very well. They've really kind of tailored that thing to him. Now, is there a quarterback out there that could really explode this offense for the Lions? Yeah, probably. But Jared Goff does a really good job. He's very efficient, high completion percentage, runs the offense, and does exactly what they want.
Yeah.
Geno, on the other hand, has the arm strength, has the poise, can do all the things that Jared Goff can do as far as running an offense efficiently, everything that an offensive coordinator wants you to be able to do, but also can hit those explosive plays down the field. I still don't think Jared Goff is a very good passer after 20 yards.
And he needs things to go smoothly. He's not,
he needs to
have, so superior to him when things aren't going well.
And he can't throw into a window. You can't throw into a bucket. So you're asking your wide receivers to create space before he lets go of a ball, which is hard to do in the NFL. Now, Geno will take those shots. So, yeah, I think there's a clear advantage there. I think Seattle has potentially a better offense. We'll see how that plays out, for
It'd be a
duration of the season.
Fun narrative after the game if that ends up being the case. Let me just check in on some comments here over on YouTube. Jeff Fornall says, I think Coach Mike McDonald and Coach Ryan Grubb have great plans for Monday Night Football. James Redding says Seahawks 20, Detroit 17. That would go against our shootout narrative, but you never know. Sometimes the opposite
I could see that
happens, right? Fabrice Pouchot says Seahawks offense will step up to compensate for our defense in this game. Rock Howard says I'm taking Goff 100 out of 100 times. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would suspect that maybe Rock is a Lions fan,
Maybe.
which is fine. Believe in your guy. But and then Steve says it's going to be a high scoring game. Seattle 34, Detroit 30. I think that's probably a little bit more likely than 20 to 17.
I'll be a little bit of a pessimist here, and I'll insert a little pessimism and say that
Rock
there's
just
one thing
confirmed he's a Lions fan. So welcome to the channel. Love having you. I've had, the last 3 years we've been able to play him, and I've done preview shows, and I've had guys on from the other side, and the Lions fan base has been fantastic, and actually has really supported the channel.
That's awesome.
So, love having him in.
One thing that does concern me a little bit, we haven't talked about it, is a thing that Gino had the last couple of years that he's played, and that he's had some pretty decent turnover worthy passes that either were intercepted or did not go intercepted.
No.
And we haven't really seen him do that. Now, yeah, he's had a few interceptions this year, but most of those have come in plays where they've been tipped or just kind of a little more fluky in nature. Yeah. And so we haven't seen him press this year yet. Now, Detroit, they have the ability to put points up on you. Now, if Seattle should fall behind, let's say by 10 points, and it's early in the third quarter, I could see Gino falling into some bad habits that we haven't seen him have this year so far, but we know he has. To take the game onto his shoulders and try to make plays, it's a noble thing to do, but it also gets him in trouble occasionally. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to see that, but there is potential there for that to happen.
I hadn't thought of this until you just said that, but it makes a lot of sense that Gino has to look at this game tomorrow as a statement game. He's this 2-year journey. He's gotten, so much more respect as he's gone along the way. So many more of his doubters have come to believe in him. On a national basis, the guys that, analyze quarterback play and do it at a high level, that have coached it and played it, John Gruden being the latest, will just speak volumes about how good they think Geno Smith is. But here we go. And he's he came out last week and he said he was pissed at the way he played, even though the final stats ended up looking good and he got a win. And here they go, Monday Night Football, under the lights in a place that he's had a tremendous amount of success playing against the Lions in that dome. Is he going to thrive on that? Right? Is that going to fuel him? Or sometimes you get a little overamped and you try to do a little too much trying to prove something. And maybe he just goes in flying a little bit too high tomorrow. He's got to see this as a real opportunity for himself.
I think so. And you are absolutely right. And so it could go either way. I do believe that it will go the way of hero Gino and confident Gino, and a guy who set the NFL record last year for comeback wins in the fourth quarter, or game leading drives. And so there may be mistakes in this game. Detroit's not a slouch by any means on both sides of the ball, but at the end of the day, the better quarterback in the NFL usually has a better chance of winning. And I think this team with Mike Macdonald as the coach is proven already, I think, to be a very well coached team. Now, they had more penalties than they wanted to. I was just going to call them a really good discipline team. But what I mean by discipline doesn't necessarily translate to penalties per se. In fact, Mike Macdonald will tell you that there are penalties that they will accept because of the way that they play.
Yeah.
And what I mean, though, is that they're focused. They're focused on the important things, the task at hand, supporting their teammates in the way that they rally around them. And that consistent play, I think, comes through in all levels, in defense, offense, special teams. And I think that there's just something special about this team. I told Keith that the other day. I was like, there's just something about this team that I haven't really felt since like 2013-14. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate into Super Bowl type stuff.
Yeah.
But this team has that little special thing that you really only find by a team that's led by a really good leader. And I think Mike Macdonald is going to be is that and is evolving into that for this team.
There's something about listening to him speak that it just feels to me like he's operating on a different plane. Like he just cognate, like intellectually,
he's amazing.
He's on a different level. And I feel the same way about Ryan Grubb. They just have such an understanding of what their philosophy is. And, they look at the language of football and it just comes easy to them. And they're just so thoughtful in their statements. And then all the things that you hear about how good they are as teachers and about how that was the emphasis as he and John Schneider went ahead with the task of building this coaching staff, is that, I'm opening myself up to criticism by saying this, because someone could easily say, yeah, but 11 penalties last week. But as far as assignment football goes, when the ball is snapped through these first 3 games, it is light years better than what we've seen the last several years. In players just seem to know where they're supposed to be, where they're supposed to go. Their reactions are quicker and their reactions are better, and they're in the right place more often. And that gives me confidence that week in, week out, no matter who we play, they're going to have a chance. They're going to have a chance to compete that week. Before I let you go, I want to talk about something. This is interesting. There's some really cool things happening in the league right now. And in particular, and this is why, I'm sure you've talked about this on your show as well, that, don't pay too much attention to what happens week 1. I've heard it said that week 1 is the biggest liar. Sometimes week 2 tells the most truth. Sometimes week 3. It's coming into the season. I talked to a lot of Seahawks fans that were scared to death of the Arizona Cardinals. Scared to death. That, oh man, we might have the best division in football. This division is stacked. Right now, the Rams are 1-3. It looks like the 49ers are going to improve to 2-2 today, although the Patriots have come back and kind of made a little bit of a game out of it. Cardinals are getting the doors blown off of themselves right now. They're going to drop to 1-3. They're behind 42-14, which is 41 seconds left to the Washington Commanders. But that's only one storyline there, right? Teams have obviously figured out how to defend that offense. Okay, you look at Kyler Murray's numbers today, and they look like they did last year when he came back from the ACL. Very game management type numbers. Fans were scared to death. I'm sure you heard this too. Almost nobody. I'd say 80% of the feedback I got during the coaching search is they wanted no part of Dan Quinn. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward, right? He's just Pete Carroll being rehashed. Dan Quinn's about to go 3-1 with a really, really young roster and a rookie starting quarterback, and they just hung 42 points on the Arizona Cardinals.
It's fantastic.
And they're 3-1.
Yeah, Brian Robinson's running the ball really well. Jaden
Daniels has been a revelation.
Looks great. He's also running the ball very well, contributing to them. I mean, that run pass option stuff for them is working.
26 out of 30 today.
Yeah, it's and I think those on the Arizona Cardinals bandwagon, I don't blame you. I think it's definitely an up and coming team. Austin Ford,
I mean, you're down there, right? What's the vibe?
Austin Ford has made some great moves. They're on the right track. It takes a little bit of time to build a team from nothing, and they had nothing last year. And they really kind of came on. They played hard for their coach. And this year they did some more things. They had a great draft. They had a lot of draft picks. They had a great offseason in general. But it shows that you just can't have a bunch of players with talent. You got to put it all together, and it takes a little bit of time. I think next year is going to be a year that you're going to start replacing the Rams in the hierarchy in the NFC West with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals kind of come up and are formidable and can steal a game from you if you don't watch out. In fact, they could still do that this year. I was not a believer in Kyler Murray up until
I never have been.
His return last year. So something happened in the offseason last year when he, after he was hurt, he had the ACL, his workout regime and workout regiment to get back into having some sort of a season last year was amazing. Like, the team rallied around him. He said all the right things. He was in the facility constantly. And he became a leader for the first time. in his life. Like he was a very immature player prior to that. Last year, the team really rallied around him. And so I saw a huge difference with him. And so I thought, well, they could stick with him. They've obviously not a very good contract, but he does have that ability. At least he did last year. And I haven't watched him play so far this year, so I can't figure out exactly where he's at. Obviously, they're going to be 1-4.
Yeah,
but we'll see. But yeah, definitely. And then the Rams. Last year I thought the Rams were overrated, and they ended up winning 10 games. This year I thought, well, I'm going to be a little bit more even on the Rams, and they're playing like crap. So I can't figure out the Rams. And then the 49ers are the 49ers. Seattle has a really neat opportunity here, far ahead of schedule where I thought they would be. Now I did predict that they would win 12 wins. Have 12 wins this year. I'd stuck my head way out there and said, okay, 12 wins. Something's happening here. But Keith was more realistic and said 10. And I was like, well, he's probably going to be right and I'm going to be wrong, but whatever, but Seattle, there's just something about this team. If they can take this game against the Lions with missing those players, this team could do could go far in the playoffs, because there's a lot of parity right now in the NFC.
Yeah.
And so this could be their opportunity to really kind of win a game or two in the playoffs and get themselves in a championship game, whether that sounds just crazy, astronomically weird right now or not. There's an opportunity there to get yourself there, and anything can happen after that.
Well, it is certainly, it's pretty fun to look ahead and be a little, I know it's premature, but you look ahead to that Thursday night football matchup on October 10th. And, you start to think about, okay, worst case scenario. If the Seahawks lose tomorrow night to drop to 3-1, they probably come home and beat the Giants. They better come home and beat the Giants to go to 4-1. The 49ers next week play Arizona. So they improve to, they would be 3-2 at that point, coming into Seattle Thursday night football. That could be a massive opportunity for the Seahawks.
I'm envious of you for having a ticket to that game, my friend.
You're coming?
No,
okay.
I wish I was. I said I was envious.
I thought
I'm
you were
envious
saying,
of you having a ticket, man.
I am coming down to the Arizona game though.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my lady and I will be down there on
what day is that?
It is December 8th, I think.
8th. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go to that game, so we'll have to
absolutely
hook up ahead of time.
Yep. I won't be able to get down there till the morning of. Basically, go straight from the airport. I think my flight gets in about 10 a.m. To the ballpark or to the stadium, but then I'll be staying until Tuesday morning. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll have to figure something out. That'll be fun. So Seahawks Playbook Podcast. That's Bill Alvstad, co-host with Keith Myers. If you don't subscribe to their YouTube channel, get on over there and do that. So that game went final. 49ers 27-13 now with 6.5 minutes left over the Patriots. So they're going to improve to 2-2. Big game tomorrow. When can folks expect to see you two reacting to the game?
Yeah, we'll probably be on Monday or Tuesday for sure. Usually it really depends on schedule. So Keith is a full-time teacher. I don't know if anybody knows that, but he's a high school math teacher and physics teacher, and he's got a physics degree and all that kind of stuff. So he's a busy guy.
He loves the stats.
Yeah, he does. So depending on that, we'll be on Monday or Tuesday. I think Sunday reaction shows are hard for us just from a schedule standpoint. There's young kids involved, all that kind of stuff.
Indeed.
But we'll be on Monday or Tuesday.
Meanwhile, I will be reacting to the game live tomorrow night, so be sure to tune in. I'll put that link out shortly before the end of the game. Hop in with your questions, comments, and reactions to hopefully a 4-0 Seahawks team. Thanks for hopping on, Bill. That was fun. And to all of you listening and watching, be sure to follow both of us on Twitter and hit that bell button on YouTube so you get notification of future episodes. All the different ways you can support the show are down in the description. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this live stream. Until next time, forever and always go Hawks. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, you guys, for watching. We'll see you next time.